Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts can trigger the highest penalty in the tax code if you don't follow the rules. Steep penalties and higher taxes can swipe away at your retirement savings, leaving you with a fraction of the money you were counting on for retirement. Today on the Statler Financial Radio Show, we'll talk about avoiding those penalties and helping protect your retirement income from higher taxes. Plus, we'll have a billionaire's insights on some of the best advice he's received from none other than Warren Buffett. As we get started, if it's time for you to start tapping into those retirement accounts, a second opinion probably makes sense for you. 863-285-3815 is how you can get a second opinion from Philip Statler before you make any withdrawals from your retirement accounts. Thanks for joining us today. We have a great show lined up. Philip Statler, happy to sit down with you once again this week. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing well, other than battling the pollen. And, I think every morning I go out into my truck and there's a half an inch to an inch of pollen just coating my windshield. So I'm ready for that part of spring to get past us.
Yes, always those changes from season to season that we have to keep up with. And as we talk about changes that we have to keep up with, Philip, the rules keep changing as it relates to retirement planning, but not keeping up with those changes and knowing the rules can be a costly mistake. We want to start with that here on the show today. Philip, what is the potential impact if we don't know when or how we're supposed to start taking money from our retirement accounts?
Jim, that's a good question because there's a lot of confusion right now. But here's the bottom line. The penalty can be 50% of the required minimum distribution you were supposed to take. Now, what's causing the confusion? Well, the confusion is that in 2019, there was a change. The Secure Act came out. And within the Secure Act, it changed the date in which you had to start taking your required minimum distribution to age 72. And that's only if you weren't 70 and a half in 2019, because if you were, you had to play by the old rules. And then to add a little bit more confusion in, 2020, Congress came out and in the CARES Act said nobody has to make any required minimum distributions in 2020. So if you turned 70 and a half in 2019, you didn't have to take a required minimum distribution in 2020 because of Congress giving you a pass. But in 2021, you do have to start taking that RMD. In 2020 or in 2021, if you turn 72, you have to start taking your RMD. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of changes here that folks need to be aware of. And don't let it just pass you by and you forget to take your required minimum distribution if you're supposed to.
So what if you don't need the money for income and it's time for you to take those distributions? Do you still have to take it out or what could your options be if you actually don't need that money yet?
You do. That's one of the things is that it doesn't matter if you want to, need to, you have to take the money out because IRS wants you to have to pay taxes on that money.
Right.
So, however, there are a few caveats here, right? There are a few things, right? So one is you can take that money and reinvest it, pay taxes on it and invest it into other stuff. I have clients that use that money to help their beneficiaries in a bigger and better way. They'll take that required minimum distribution and they'll use it to buy life insurance for their beneficiaries, for their kids, so that they can leave them in a better spot than they could otherwise. And another way that folks don't really think about is if you're charitably minded and you like to give to a lot of charities, there is a way, once you have to start taking that required minimum distribution, that you can take it directly out of your IRA, not have to pay tax on it, and you don't get the deduction for the charitable donation, but you don't have to pick up the taxable income either, which is better today because most people can't write off their donations anyway because the standard deduction has gotten so high. So there are options out there. You just need to make sure you're using the right one to take advantage of.
Let's talk a little bit about that when we talk about these withdrawals. How could that impact your taxes, Philip?
It's number one, it can push you into a higher tax bracket. Right now, all of a sudden, you have to take your RMD. And so that's going to be income that you have to pay tax on. The other area that folks don't realize where it can be very impactful is on their Social Security. So now your Social Security may be taxable or may be taxable more than it was before. So if you didn't have to pay tax on any of your Social Security or very little of it, now all of a sudden you're taking your required minimum distribution that pushes your income up. Now we have to pay tax on more of our Social Security. And the last area that it can be a really blindside you is Medicare premiums. So if you get over a certain threshold, your Medicare premiums, your Part D prescription drug premiums will go up significantly if you get over that specific wage base.
Philip, Thomas Tull, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He is a billionaire who runs a company called Tullco. It's a holding company kind of modeled after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. And Warren Buffett gave him some advice that I think fits perfectly with our discussion of avoiding mistakes with your RMDs and your income strategy, thinking about your withdrawals. Tull said he was once explaining that he wanted to be smart about a business strategy, and Warren Buffett interrupted his presentation and said, "But what's the dumb thing we could do here?" and you kind of laugh, but the point is, instead of trying to be the smartest one in the room, Warren Buffett says, identify the dumb thing and then figure out how to avoid it. And I wonder if that's an approach we should think about with our financial plans. What's the dumb thing? And let's not do that.
That if you think about it, Jen, that really makes a lot of sense. But the problem is we don't ask that question, right? We always want to do something smarter, better, and figure it out.
Right.
Well,
right.
Going into retirement, especially if you're 5 to 10 years out, what's the dumb thing that could happen? Well, you could lose money. You could lose money at the exact time that you need to start taking money out of your portfolio. And that in itself would be disastrous. And so figuring out how not to do that is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I really like what he said there. That was very, I not ever heard that before, but very insightful.
I know. I mean, it's great. And so, yeah, the dumb thing is running out of money. So after we've identified that, how do we figure out the best course of action going forward?
And that's it, not losing money, and that to me, that's where using the rule of 100 really and truly benefits folks, because it says we're going to take a certain part of your portfolio. It's going to be safe and secure where you can't lose value. And we're going to take the rest of it. We're going to take a little bit of risk with it and to help keep up with inflation. So that to me is so huge that we need to have that under control. So that's really what I would say is that not losing money is a huge deal as we head into retirement.
That's right. And there's a lot to think about. It's not just about making sure that you've saved. You also have to protect from some of those missteps. Forbes says required minimum distributions can trigger the highest penalty in the tax code if you don't follow the rules. You do not want steep penalties and potentially higher taxes swiping away at your savings, leaving you with a fraction of the money you were counting on for your retirement.
You're right. If you make a mistake with your required minimum distribution from your IRA or your other retirement accounts, because you got to take them for your 401ks too, the penalty for not taking that full amount of your required minimum distribution is 50%. That's huge. And so that's 50% of the amount you should have taken. In addition to the income tax you have to pay on that distribution also. You also need to understand the timing of your required minimum distribution, that RMD, could also push you into a higher tax bracket, trigger higher taxes on your Social Security benefit, and cause a higher Medicare premium surtax. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up steep penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes on top of that. For listeners for today's show, if you saved at least $150,000 for retirement, give us a call at 863-285-3815. And we can help you create a retirement income plan that includes a strategy for taking distributions from your accounts to help ensure your retirement savings last as long as you need it to last. There's no cost, there's no obligation, but this is only for those folks that listen to the show today. That's 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you'd need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Jen Rezac here alongside Philip Statler, getting ready to talk about the lifestyles of the rich and famous. I don't know, Philip, does that help you channel your inner Robin Leach at all with lifestyles of the rich and famous?
You know, I remember growing up with that. I remember watching that on TV and
great.
being just infatuated with how other people live, people that had a heck of a lot more money than I did.
Yes, I know. And that's part of the allure of that show, to see how these people really lived. But the thing is, as wonderful as it seems to live the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and what was that catchphrase, champagne wishes and caviar dreams? I don't know if that was the reality for all of it, because some of them, Philip, went from riches to rags. And that happens a lot more than we often think. I mean, if you Google actors who lost it all, you're going to find a lot of people who come up there. There's a lot of celebrities who have hit financial hard times. And it just begs the question, how can so many people, you think about these athletes and musicians and actors and these celebrities, how do so many people, Philip, go through so much money so quickly?
Yeah, because they don't have a TV show for that, do they?
No, that would not be fun. Right.
It might be useful, though, to help teach some of those people that that did go from riches to rags, the people that have it, to keep from losing it. That would be smart, maybe, to do that. So how does that happen? Well, I think that a lot of times it happens because they don't pay attention.
Yep.
They don't pay attention to what they're doing, what they're spending. They have an agent that's managing everything, and they don't see it. They don't know what that agent's doing for them, and so they just keep spending. They don't have a budget, right? They don't know how to stop spending money. And so because they don't see what's coming in, or they don't care what's coming in, right? They feel like they're entitled to spend money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, before you know it, it's gone through their fingertips, and the IRS is the last person there holding the bag and says, "Hey, you didn't pay us."
Right.
And
Gosh, yeah.
that can be a big problem.
Well, and it's not really a new problem. I know a couple years ago, Sports Illustrated did a study, and they estimated 80% of retired NFL players go broke in their first 3 years of retirement. And I know, Philip, not everybody has the same size of contract as some of these guys, what they end up getting paid, but they're all pretty well compensated, even the players who aren't the big name quarterbacks and the ones who are a big deal. But a couple of the reasons that this happens is lack of competent financial planning advice and sharing too much of their wealth with their family and friends. And of course, being generous, Philip, is a good thing. I don't think any of us would say it's bad to be generous, but if you aren't watching it, if you don't have a plan and all these people are coming out of the woodwork, you can see how a lot of that money gets spent really fast. Do you see similar concepts as a concern for the everyday retiree as far as not getting the right planning advice and then maybe being a little bit careless or maybe a little bit too generous with the people who might need your help?
We do see that sometimes. I would say that, and especially in the terms of athletes and the superstar people, is that they don't know how to live within their means.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their problem. Well, a lot of it is their problem. I mean, they do have family and friends. Don't get me wrong. Family and friends are there with their hands out wanting money. And you would think that they would get competent financial advice, but they really don't. They have an agent that's trying to create more money for them.
Yep.
But not looking out for the other side. I believe that when you head into retirement, there are some things that you need to look at. One is, you have to live within your means, and that really needs to start before you retire.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make sure that we've done a good job of at least our short-term debt paid for. It'd be nice if we had all of our debt paid. That would be a huge benefit, and it is a huge benefit for the clients that I work with, that you can see the difference, right, between those that do and those that don't. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, and this is hard, right, because they want to help. People want to help their family, and it's hard to see our family suffer.
Yes.
I remember back in 2008, that big downturn in the financial markets. A lot of people got laid off then, and jobs were hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having clients that, I'm having to help this, I'm having to help this child, I'm having to help this son, this daughter, this son-in-law, because they lost their job and they really didn't have any savings. So we're having to help support them.
Right. And when there are grandkids involved, people want to help.
I mean, there's all kinds of rationale for why we do what we do. But the question still begs itself is, are we doing what's best for them? And are we doing what's best for us, the retiree?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes difficult to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand it is not an easy decision to make. But sometimes I see folks that are retired that are hurting themselves because they're giving so much to their family. And so that becomes a problem. That's when, sometimes you hate to do it, but sometimes I have to be the bad guy. I have to say, look, let's draw this out. If you do this, this is how it's going to impact you. And that's not going to be good.
Well, and that's one of those things too, Philip. I feel like, and I think this is a good opportunity to give the phone number for those who might need a little help, a little bit of guidance if you're feeling that pressure and trying to figure out what the impacts are, because maybe one of your kids has gotten laid off, or maybe they need help covering the mortgage, and you're right to want to help them, but you do have to understand the impacts of that down the road. 863-285-3815 is the number to call to reach Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. That's 863-285-3815. They can help you go through all the different options. They can help you understand what the impacts are with the financial decisions that you're making right now, how that will impact you in the long term. Not to say that they're going to tell you, no, you can't do this, or no, don't do that, but just helping you understand what those impacts are and what can you afford to do and what are some other decisions that you might think about. 863-285-3815. And Philip, when you think about that need to want to help take care of your kids, I always think of that analogy of the air masks dropping down in an airplane. If you are those oxygen masks dropping down, if you're in a plane, and they always talk about how if the cabin loses pressure and those oxygen masks drop down, if you have children, you still have to put that mask on yourself first, because if you are incapacitated, what good are you to them? You have to make sure that you have oxygen, and then you help your kids get theirs as well. It's kind of the same thing with our money. I mean, you want to be able to help them, but also if you are completely incapacitated financially, that's not doing them any favors either, right?
No, who's going to help you, right? Who's going to, if you, along the way, you've diverted your retirement funds to them, then are they going to really be there when you're down and you need long-term care help, or you need additional money for medical issues? We would like to think yes, but let's be realistically that most of the time that's not going to happen. That's not a carte blanche that yes, it always happens. No, there are times that I've seen, children of clients step in and help their parents, from a financial standpoint and just from a time standpoint, being there for them to help them during that time that they are having issues, stepping in and walking with them through whatever that health issue or financial crisis. I've seen that. So it does happen both ways, but more often than not, that money's a gift, not a loan to your children. And it is most of the time not going to get repaid.
You just have to think about those consequences, and especially if you're worried that you might outlive your savings, Philip. There are emergencies that happen, and if you spend through too much of what you've saved and then you end up living a long time, that's why we have to have these conversations, because we don't know how long we'll last, but we have to be able to watch this so our money will last as long as we need it to. And that's a big part of your financial x-ray report, Philip, looking inside what's going on with your money, how you have that set up. And then after you've made those determinations, Philip, that's when you start looking at answers, right? Not necessarily going to products first, right?
Absolutely not. We need to know first. I mean, to me, I'm a big proponent. If you don't know where you are right now from a risk standpoint, from a cost standpoint, how do you know where you need to go? Mm-hmm. And so that is the reason I developed the financial x-ray, was so that we could determine exactly where somebody is and to make sure that where they are lines up with where they want to be. And too often I don't see that. I don't see people with a portfolio that lines up with their risk tolerance number. And that's a problem, especially as we look to and get ready for retirement, because it just takes another 2008. It takes another March of 2020 to wipe out your savings. Who says the next time this market drops that it'll come back the way it did in March? You can't say that. Matter of fact, I'm reading stuff now that says it won't. And so, what are we going to do? We've got to have something in place that is going to give you the income you need throughout your lifetime. And so the starting point is the financial x-ray. The ending point is having an income plan in place that's going to walk you through life as a retiree, month in and month out, knowing where your money's coming from and how much it's going to be. And so that's where we start from. I mean, I think that's the only place you can really start, is you need to know where you are before you can know where you're going, Jen.
So let's talk a little bit about how we can do this, because I know, Philip, there are lots of different ways that you can meet with people now. You have your virtual meetings, and you have those on a regular basis. You can do this virtually. You can get on the phone with someone. You can do those face-to-face meetings with the proper protocols in place. 863-285-3815 is the way you can get started. Doesn't have to take a real long time on the phone to uncover some of this. It really is a short discovery call, and Philip can cover an awful lot with you on the phone there in that initial phone call, and then start to figure out what needs to happen from there. And like I said, he has a lot of different ways he can connect with you, a lot of different ways he can meet with you. 863-285-3815 is that number. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Just ask for the financial x-ray report support, and Philip and his team can help you get started. 863-285-3815. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Weddings, sports, vacations. Just about everything this year has been pushed back, shortened, or canceled. Now think about your retirement. You can't cancel it. You probably don't want to shorten it, but do you need to push it back? Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can help make sure your retirement dreams are still on track. Philip and his team have been helping families just like yours retire no matter what the situation is for more than 20 years. They can help design a plan so that whenever you are ready to retire, your retirement is there waiting for you. Take control of your retirement today. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team. Do it now, 863-285-3815. Don't cancel, shorten, or push back your retirement dreams. Plan now so you can do all the things you've always wanted to do when you want to do them. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And if you are trying to prepare for retirement, I got to tell you, there are a couple of habits you can steal from the super wealthy, because while there are some who go from riches to rags and they have made the wrong financial decisions and they end up going broke, there are plenty of others who do this the right way. And even after they retire, even after they aren't having that main source of income from movies or their football career or whatever it is, they're okay because they did the planning. So let's talk about that, Philip. What are some of the good financial habits we should pick up from the wealthy, the rich, and famous?
Well, I think the first one is live within or below your means. I mean, that's the way that you can build your wealth, is to live below your means and to save and invest the rest. One of the things that always impressed me about people that won money, because it was found money, right? They won the lottery,
sure,
or whatever.
Yeah, it just was there, right?
Is those people, they are the ones that are successful at it. They say, okay, I'm going to take, depending on how big the jackpot is, obviously, but I'm going to take 5%. I'm going to take 10%. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to blow it, do what I want to do, but I'm going to invest the rest of it. And I'm going to use that money to live off of. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to use it to live off. Those are smart people. And unfortunately, there's not enough of those people that win that kind of money and do that, because we'd be in a much better spot if we did. The second thing I think people need to do is, and I've said this before, is pay off debt. When you head into retirement, it is so much easier if you're debt-free. Mortgage, car, credit cards, all of it. If you're debt-free, it is so much easier to head into retirement. It doesn't mean that if you're not, that you can't retire, but it's so much easier if you are debt-free heading into retirement. And then thirdly, you just have to save and invest. You have to pay yourself first. And I know we've all heard that. And it's tough when you're really young. And it gets tougher when you got kids in college. And this can still be tough when they're out of college and they can't find a job. I understand. But you have to pay yourself first, because if you don't, then the opportunity for retirement is going to get longer and longer. You're going to be working till you're, 70, 75, working part-time for the rest of your life. That's not what you want. And so living below your means, pay yourself first. Those type of things will help you get ahead and be prepared for retirement and be able to live the retirement you always dreamed of.
So let's go ahead and name some names here when we talk about the people who have made some of those smart decisions. And it's okay, because we're talking about the things that they've done right. You talk about someone who is able to live below their means, pay off debt, and invest. I think of Warren Buffett, and he's got lots of great quotes and some of the tips and the financial advice that he is known for, Philip. But one of the things he once said is that compounding is like being at the top of a large hill and pushing a snowball down it. And my kids watch cartoons all the time, so I can really see this in my head where you've got, Bugs Bunny or whatever up at the top of this mountain and makes a tiny little snowball. And then by the time it gets to the bottom, it's like wiping out a village because it's just grown and picked up snow the whole way down. With that visual in mind, how much of an impact can compounding have on our retirement savings?
Yeah, it's really huge, Jen. It really is. I always remember seeing the graphic, and I haven't seen it for a while, but I always would come out at conferences and people would show this and say, look, if you had two brothers and brother one started saving at, say, age 25, and he put $2,000, I think it's $2,000 away for 10 years and then didn't contribute anything. And in year 11, his brother started contributing $2,000 a year all the way until he hit retirement. That the brother that started first would have more money than the brother that started 10 years later and contributed all the way until his retirement.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how the compounding effect works when you start saving. It's just the fact that you have to start doing it, do it regularly, do it consistently, and it will pay off in the end.
That's huge advice right there, just to get started early rather than waiting until the last minute. And then also, Philip, aside from starting early with our savings, we want to make smart decisions with our investments as well. And based on the way we've talked about this before, I know our investment strategy needs to be different when we're in retirement versus when we're in those earlier years when we're really just focused on growth and putting away as much as we can, right? It's got to change some.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, when you're working and you're just getting started, you're dumping everything you can into savings, and you want to put it, I don't want to say the most risky, but you want to put it in a decent growth portfolio. You want it to focus on growth, and you want to do that until you look out and say, okay, I'm about 5 years out from retirement, because 5 years out from retirement says, now, if I have another big catastrophic market downturn, then that could impair my chances of retirement. And we don't want that to happen. So there's a gear that needs to shift. We need to downshift 5 years out from retirement. We need to start that process of, okay, let's make sure that we've got enough of our portfolio safe and secure, so if the market does crash again, that we're okay. We're going to be taken care of. And so, that's one of those things that we want to make sure that folks are doing. And that's really why we developed the financial x-ray, is to make sure that when people head into retirement or already are retired, that they don't have an exorbitant amount of risk in their portfolio. And too often, Jen, when I sit down with people, they believe that they're in a conservative portfolio. And when we run the risk numbers, that just is not the case. And so that's why it's so important that people know where they are, get a financial x-ray, and so that they can know where they are, where they need to get to. Folks, all they have to do to schedule their financial x-ray is give us a call at 863-285-3815. It's easy. We can do it over the phone. We can do it with a Zoom meeting, or you can come in and we can sit across from each other face to face and have that discussion. I'm okay either way. I mean, we're being safe here at Statler Financial. We're wearing masks. We're taking care of everything and keeping everything like nice and cleaned up and sanitized and all that kind of stuff that you're supposed to be doing, we're doing. And so a great opportunity to get your financial x-ray. Again, all you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815 to get started on that project.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. That number again, 285-3815, talking about the lifestyles of the rich and famous and those who have done it right. And Philip, Jay Leno is another good example of someone who lived well below his means. And I didn't realize this, but he says he never actually spent the money he made from The Tonight Show the whole time he was on that show when it was airing. That money went straight to his savings, he says. He said he made money from comedy shows separately, and that's what he spent. So let's talk a little bit about that idea of living below our means, making sure that we are having some money set aside for savings. Some money is what we're going to use for income. Some money we're going to put aside from other things. How do we take that same approach with our retirement savings?
Well, I think it's the same thing, right? We need to, one thing, when you're working, we need to be living below our means. That's definitely helpful to plan for retirement. But the other thing is when we retire, we need to have the same attitude. You need to do that, right? Because here, I'll just give you an example. I've had clients before that didn't do that. We sat down and we had done their budget and we had added some money to their budget. So they had more than enough. They would have been fine. Mm-hmm. But they had a spending problem. They could not quit spending money over and above the stuff we had budgeted for. And it was not a small budget, Jen. Don't get me wrong. It was a different thing. And so it's one of those things that I just had to kind of, walk her through it. And ultimately it was to her demise, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just one of those things we need to keep in mind. And I know we're not going to be on the same scale as Jay Leno as far as what the one job is that we can put into savings and having another job that we can afford to live off of. But I think the basic concept is there as far as understanding some of our money needs to go to savings, some of it needs to go to income, some of it's going to go to other things, some of it's going to go to taxes. There's just a lot of things that we can't afford to overlook when we are talking about making the right decisions. And Philip, as we talk about the athletes and musicians and actors who made the wrong decisions, they ended up losing their money after working so hard to be successful. That is the last thing that we want as we head into retirement. So if we're worried we might be headed down that path because we don't know if we've got the right planning in place, we don't know if we've gotten the right advice so far, what's your recommendation for us?
I think that we need to kind of step back and take a look and see if there are some ways that we can move in the right direction, and so the starting point needs to be having that budget and having that income plan. I don't know. It's just so important that people do that. And Jen, I sit down with people all the time and nobody has a written income plan, which really concerns me because I'm thinking, how do they know what they can spend if they don't have an income plan in place? And so I really believe that people need to have a retirement income plan in place so that they know what they can effectively spend without running out of money. Nobody, the number one fear of retirees is running out of money before they run out of life. And I don't want that to happen to anybody out there. Let's sit down and let's look at your situation and determine an income plan for you. Give me a call right now at 863-285-3815. That number is 863-285-3815. That will get you started on the road to the retirement you always dreamed of.
That number again, 863-285-3815. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Call Philip Statler today to get started on your complimentary financial x-ray report. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you'd need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Right now, watching out for things that could harm your retirement with Philip Statler. And Philip, turns out there are about as many risks to your retirement income as there are James Bond movies, because they just keep coming, right?
One after another, man. It's hard to
One after
believe
another.
there's a bunch of them out there.
I know. There's getting close to 30 at this point. And of course, Sean Connery, George Lazenby, I think he just did one, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and our current James Bond happens to be my favorite, Daniel Craig. I don't know. Are you a Bond fan? Do you have a favorite Bond actor?
Daniel Craig better than Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Really?
I believe so. So you're team Sean Connery then?
I do like Sean
That's fine.
Connery and Pierce Brosnan. I've always liked him in pretty much anything he's been in.
Yeah.
Those are probably my two favorites.
All right. Yeah, no, I really like Daniel Craig. I think he's pretty good Bond. He's a bit gritty, so it's a little bit different than some of those other ones. But yeah, just like those Bond movies and the guys who play Bond, they just keep coming. They just keep coming, and just like that, those risks to our retirement income just keep coming as well. I don't know, maybe I should have gone through the Bond villains as we talk about the risks to our retirement income, but nobody likes to talk about the bad guy, really. Right. But what are some of those big risks to your retirement income?
Well, if you think about it, I don't know, there's 26 or 30 of them out there, but longevity, which we talked about, is definitely one of them. That the risk of living longer than your money is going to last is just a big thing out there that people are concerned about. Inflation, market volatility, taxes to me could be bigger than anybody ever imagined, given where we are today in the lowest tax situation we've ever seen. There's no way to go but up, and that scares me. So we have to be ready for that. And then obviously long-term care, and like I said, longevity. I think those are the key things I think that retirees really think about and have nightmares about sometimes.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, we'll kind of take some of these things one at a time, because I can see why you have all these concerns about these different risks, and they just keep coming. Like, life doesn't stop just because we're worried about these things. We have to keep navigating through it while things continue happening all around us. But when we talk about longevity as one of the risks, living a long time does sound like a good thing. So talk about why we use words like risk when we describe longevity as a factor to think about.
Well, I think that, people, one thing that can really cause you to understand how longevity can affect your money is think back, right? If I think, hey, I'm 65, I'm going to live 25 years in retirement. So think back from today, 25 years ago, right? How much was gas? How much was food, milk? Coffee is one of the big things I use as a symbol because I'm a big coffee drinker. But what did things cost back then, and what do they cost today? And take that and go another 25 years into the future, and it really makes you think of, man, my money's got to really grow to keep up with this thing that's called inflation. That is the biggest proponent of longevity, right? It's the biggest factor in our money when it comes to longevity is inflation and expenses getting higher and higher. So I think that's one reason that people really are concerned about living too long.
Talk a little bit about some of the options we have, Philip, if we are worried we could outlive our savings. What are some of the options for dealing with that?
Well, the one that comes to my mind really and truly is annuities. And why? Because annuities were developed just for that one purpose. Way back in the, I don't remember, 1850s, 1860s, whatever it was, that they were developed, by the Presbyterian Church to take care of their ministers in retirement. And they were created for that purpose, to create lifetime income. And so I think that that's a tool that is so often overlooked and underutilized. Now, granted, everything's got to be taken in moderation, because I've seen the opposite, right? I've sat down with people who some annuity salesman has sold them, almost all their money's tied up in annuities. And that's not right either, folks. There's a balance that needs to be made. And so that's what we really look at, is balancing the income need with the growth need, and make sure that we're taking care of both those things, because you don't know how long you're going to live. None of us do. And so we have to be prepared for that 100-year mark. It's becoming more normal than what it ever has before. And so I think we have to be prepared for that. And one way to do that, one tool to use is to use an annuity to provide that income for the rest of your life. And that's really what I do here at Statler Financial, is income planning is one of the big things that we're all about here. And so, knowing how much income you're going to need and developing that plan that provides you with the comfort of knowing that you've got the income to last your lifetime. So it's something you need to have. If you don't have a written income plan and you're 5 years out from retirement, or you've already retired and don't have an income plan, please give me a call and let's start that process today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Let's get started today to make sure you're on the right path for your retirement. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services, and we are going over all the risks that can do some damage to your retirement, and they just keep coming. I've heard inflation, Philip, described as the silent killer of retirement income. So if that's such a big concern, what can we do about it?
Well, I think that there's not a lot you can do about inflation itself, right? It's going to happen. It's going to come at you. They call it the silent killer because you don't see it coming, right? It just all of a sudden prices go up and up and up. And so, the only way to really plan for it is to put some kind of inflation protection within your income plan. But what happens if you don't have an income plan? Well, then you don't have an inflation rider built into it. So that becomes an issue. We need to have an income plan in place to help offset some of these obstacles that we've talked about today, and inflation being one of them, longevity being the other one. To me, longevity and inflation kind of go hand in hand, because the reason longevity is such an issue to us is inflation. Is a big part of it. And so we want to make sure that we've got the right income plan in place to get you not just into retirement, but get you and your spouse through retirement. That's what's important.
So important to make sure we're thinking about these things. Another risk, Philip, what do you do to help keep taxes from taking too much of a bite out of your savings? I mean, how frustrating to do all the work and save as much as you can for retirement, and then get to where it's time to start tapping into those accounts and not think about the taxes and the fact that you don't actually have as much to spend as you thought you did.
One of my favorite people to listen to is Ed Slott, and Ed Slott, he's the IRA guru of the country. He's called on a lot to talk about that, and he always says, you know what, that IRA, that 401k is not just yours. You have a partner, and that partner's the IRS, and people forget that, right? It's not all your money. Every time you take some out, guess what? IRS is there with their hand out. They want some too. It's one of the things that, because of my background in taxation, and that I still actually am actively put myself in that place to actually do some returns, I understand what that means. I believe tax rates are going to go up. And so we need to take advantage of the tax situation we have right now, the lowest tax rates we're probably ever going to see. And so we help clients really take advantage of whatever tax situation is out there, from being in a high tax bracket and needing money. Okay, so we have to plan that distribution. Do we have any money that's not retirement money? So we help people decide where to take money from to be as tax efficient as possible. The flip side of that, though, Jen, is that people are in an ultra low tax bracket and they're not taking any money out of their IRAs, or they're taking very little money out of their IRAs. So they're wasting their standard deduction. They're wasting their low tax bracket. And so we bring that to their attention. We help them plan to better use the tax brackets they're in, whether that means Roth conversions or just taking the money out and using it in other ways. But taxes are a big deal. And taxes to me are an area that planning, the planning for taxes is underutilized in our industry. And it's because a lot of times the financial advisors out there, they don't have an understanding of taxes. If they're part of a big company, the big company say, hey, you can't give tax advice. You got to send them down the road for that. And so, those things kind of set us apart, make us a little different than the other folks out there on the street, is because that is my background. And it's something that I still do on a regular basis, is take care of some tax stuff. So it is an area that I think that we bring a lot of value to the table when it comes to retirement planning and tax planning, and wrapping those two things together, Jen, because it is important. It is a big deal. It does play a big role in retirement, and people forget that. Look, the way to get started is you have to know where you are. And the only way to know where you are in terms of your retirement portfolio is a financial x-ray. Give us a call right now and schedule your time to visit with us to put together your financial x-ray. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Jen, they can also go to our website, statlerfinancial.com. There's a button right there in the top right-hand corner, schedule a visit with Philip. Push that button. You'll have access to my calendar. You can schedule your own time. Best suits you. But do it today, 863-285-3815, or go to statlerfinancial.com, go to our calendar link there and schedule your appointment there. I look forward to seeing you. Don't wait too long. Do it now.
That's all the time we have on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Thanks for spending some time with us here today. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.